finalizing that application. And we wanted to share with you the executive summary and get some feedback on that, have a conversation about it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the link to that document into the chat. And I'll do this a few times as people are coming in. And if you could, click on that, take a look at it. I'm going to give everybody about 5 minutes to review it, and then we'll have a conversation about it. See what kind of feedback, input, changes that you think we should make to this. This is really the the core of what we're focused on here. I mean, the application itself is going to have a lot more detail in it, but this summary should provide you a good overview of the way we're approaching this. So go ahead and take a few minutes to review it, and then we'll have a conversation about it. All right, everybody's had a chance to take a look at it, and so we'll open it up for feedback, comments, questions. You can throw things in the chat if you like, or raise your hand, or just turn on your mic and go ahead and contribute. Let's see, we have a hand from Tim.
Yes, and again, greetings everybody. Being the economist in the room, the statistical comparison at the end of the first paragraph is not right. You can't compare percentage of population to percentage of attainment. It has to be aligned. So it doesn't really matter what percentage of the population a particular subgroup is. We would expect everyone's attainment to be the same. So we have to compare attainment to attainment. So what percentage of Latinx versus what percentage of white versus what percentage of Black or others, that otherwise the comparison's not right.
Great, thank you for that. We will take a look at that and make those corrections.
The other statistic in the first paragraph, the count of places in universities and colleges and Cal States and the like. I mean, Cal Poly and Cal State San Bernardino are both members of the Cal State University system. So that's 2, not 1. And the number of private, you could argue about which ones are well respected, but there are way more than 4 private colleges and universities in the Inland Empire. And I'd argue that there are way more than 4 that are well respected. So I just think those counts, the whole first paragraph, all the way you're counting things just needs to be revisited. And it is the very first paragraph.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we were focused on
but it's in the
just Riverside and San Bernardino counties, but there's clearly other institutions that are involved in this that are in LA County and adjacent counties as well. So
then you should call it the Inland Empire, which comprises those 2 counties and then some more. And if we're going to count Pomona and Claremont and San Dimas, I mean, if they're not in the Inland Empire, and that's going to mean we're just going to say the boundaries, then we have a kind of peculiar argument to be made. So I think it's the Inland Empire comprises those 2 counties plus.
Yeah, agreed. I think we were looking at the colleges, universities, K-12 districts within the SURF region, which technically does not include LA County, but you are absolutely right. We are working with institutions outside of our SURF region because a lot of our students attend those institutions. So we will definitely make those corrections as well.
Yeah, and you certainly could always use the good old English trope, more than, as opposed to having to count them exactly. So then that gives you some leeway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify that SURF, so the state has already predefined the boundaries for us, and it is, the SURF region is San Bernardino and Riverside County alone. Yeah,
we just really need to, that is you know, that is the region defined by the state, but because our students, you know, attend institutions outside of that narrowly defined region, we need to, you know, I guess respect the SURF region within the definitions of the grant, but also make sure that we are inclusive to the institutions that are serving the students within our SURF region, which includes, you know, I mean, right on the edge of that SURF region, which I think most people would define the Inland Empire as reaching west all the way to Pomona. Certainly. So we will find a way to include that.
Yes, we have Pomona and University of Laverne often is involved in our activities as well. I mean, we have a lot of partners in all this.
So, Michael, this is Jim from University of Redlands. The general sense I get is that the overall grant is not going to get into specifics about what we might do in these pathways, but it's really more setting up the system by which that will get executed later. Am I reading that correctly? So we did a lot of work in our group, but I'm okay if that isn't specifically in the grant because that was all very tentative, but that was more just to get a sort of a sense of where we might go. Is that the idea that you're sort of saying? I don't know how much of that work then gets translated into the grant itself and how much of that comes in the implementation phase down the road. It sounds like this is mostly about setting up a funding mechanism by which programs can get done. Is that, am I reading that correctly? Because I just wasn't sure from our prior conversations how much of this is really still at the planning phase. Is that, am I getting that right?
Right. So from the summary, that is, you know, that is clearly the, you know, the way it reads. In the grant application itself, there are specific questions, which I think, you know, you and others answered in great detail about what could possibly be, you know, some examples of what could be happening within the pathways. And we will be including some of those examples in the questions that are deeper into the application. But generally speaking, you know, we are at the beginning phase of this. And even though we've had these conversations within the pathways groups, nothing is set in stone, and we're using these ideas as a launching pad for further conversations. So there's a little, you know, there's in a sense, we're not going to just dive into the pathways without further discussion and really helping to build them out, making sure everybody is in the room when these conversations are happening that need to be, with a goal of having these clear pathways set up by the fall. So the work that all of you have done is certainly not being excluded or discounted. It's part of this iterative process of, you know, of really getting to where we want to be by the fall. Let's see, Richard has her hand up.
Yeah, just playing off of what James had brought up, I just want to clarify then. The application itself then does not require specifics, only general directions and ideas, because your executive summary basically suggests that it's the ANT itself, the newly created K-16 ANT, that's going to determine who gets funding for what, and that won't be determined really finally till spring of next year. Do I read that correctly?
Yeah, so the grant does not require details of the pathways. So you are reading that correctly. I mean, we do need to set up how we're going to structure the whole process, which comes out in the executive summary, and provide examples, and especially provide examples of existing. I think that's where the conversations have been most valuable, is the things that currently exist that we're going to build upon. Those are the types of things that we're going to be putting in the application. Alex.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, this is probably the third or fourth grant I've been a part of like this. So a planning grant, basically you just give a general sense of an idea. And then the money that you get is a small amount with technical assistance to finalize an implementation phase that might get funded. So the first phase is usually like, okay, give me a general idea of what you want to do with the money. And then if we like your idea, we're going to fund the rest of it to get the details and probably provide not just money, but also technical assistance to make sure that you can qualify for the next phase of the grant. So, so yeah, you don't have to be as detailed. You just have to provide a general sense of what you want to do. And that's how, yeah, so you're competing for ideas. This is a competition about ideas. And then if it's a good idea, then the next phase is you go into writing out the details. And I think they sometimes provide a technical assistance. I'm not sure if they're doing this for this one, but for the most, for the ones that we have done for the last 3 or 4 years, that has been the setup. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, there will likely be some technical assistance from the state, yeah, as well as we get into the implementation phase.
Yeah, I did want to say at this phase, a lot of what we talked about is what's happening in the region, the kinds of exemplars that you all described. We did go quite a bit into the qualities of a strong pathway and how that would be, that we spent weeks fleshing out with examples of what should happen in the transitions and so on. And that will be something that's really important to use when looking at the different proposals that come in from across the subregions in the 2 counties. So it was an attempt to kind of set the table for what the different areas across our really large region will propose as pathways that they would like to. They may already be existing and growing, or they may be glimmers in the eye that are looking for initial planning funding. But this grant kind of asks for, how are you going to set the table to support the development of key pathway ideas by these talented people that we all know are here, including yourselves, as we move forward. So it's a balance between, are you proposing pathways or are you proposing preparing for pathways? And it's actually pathways planning that we are required to support.
Yeah, and you know, ultimately it's a bit of a timing issue as well. If they had given us 3 months, 4 months to really flesh out what each pathway was going to look like, you know, we would have been in a better position to do that. But you know, they gave us a month, and really made it clear. I mean, I understand why they gave a month, because it really is, as Beth was saying, really setting up the structure and sharing some best practices, promising practices that are already happening in the region, and asking how we're going to strengthen those and build on those. So you know, the work of within these pathways, even though we've had a lot of good conversations up to this point, the real work begins, you know, in a few weeks when we hear back. Once we receive the go ahead for the grant, then we really need to dive into the pathways work at that point, and really flesh that out between now and the fall, basically. Let's see. I thought Valerie had a hand up. Is Valerie still here?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. I just would like a little clarification. I think you've answered it already, but it seems like our goal for this K-16 collaborative grant is not so much to provide multiple entry and exit points. It's not so much to increase income attainment and decrease the employment gap in these pathways, but rather it's to increase degree attainment in those pathways. Is that an accurate assessment? You know, as I look through there, I did see the labor, you know, some of the labor market information, but really it seems like we want more people to get degrees, and that's kind of our goal. Am I reading that right?
That is certainly an important part of it. I wouldn't say that's the only goal, but by increasing higher education attainment rates, we're naturally going to, that is going to lead to the outcomes that we're really shooting for: increasing economic and social mobility, living wage jobs, bringing opportunities for entrepreneurship and industry into the Inland Empire to do those things. But ultimately, and this is an important piece of this grant, is to involve industry, from the get-go, right? So our business and industry partners are going to be involved. And so, they have a role in this as well to help with advancing the economic and social mobility of the Inland Empire. And then in addition to that, there's going to be coordination with IEGO and obviously other community-based organizations. So it's really a collective effort to really improve the economic situation in the Inland Empire, with the K-16 piece of that focused on getting more students, to transition from K-12 into the community colleges, into the 4-year on these pathways that are going to lead to those more economically and socially, prosperous types of jobs, and build the economy, as a whole. But that's just one piece, the education piece, but it's broader than that. It's kind of really a regional collective effort involving multiple partners, multiple grant opportunities to advance the economics in this region.
Great. And I really appreciate that. I've appreciated the work that GIA has done as I've watched it over the last several years. And the only reason I'm kind of beating that drum again is because that will drive the metrics that we use. So if our metrics are only going to be degree attainment instead of something based on income or decreasing the employment gaps, that's going to change our direction. Are we truly serving the workforce and improving that and thereby raising up the Inland Empire? Or are we truly serving post-secondary institutions to get more people there attaining degrees? Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's all of the above. I guess that's the answer. That's what we're really going for here.
Michael, there was a question in the chat from Hillary.
Okay. Let's see. Hillary, second paragraph, did you want to include logistics, transportation, environmental sustainability as an emerging need? Yeah, and then the terminology of disenfranchised, it underserved could work. Disproportionately impacted is the language that we typically use in higher education. So yeah, we should look at that again. Disenfranchised may not be the best descriptor, so we'll review that again. As far as the first part of that, with including logistics, transportation, so yes, that is all, those are emerging needs, and those have been identified through IEGO as priorities for the region, and those are certainly included. And Alex threw in the chat, marginalized. That's another descriptor that we could use as well. Any other feedback, questions, or concerns, additions?
I
Yes.
just wanted to, I don't know who, just the lady who spoke about how it reads. Um, uh, I just wanted to ask, is that your first impression when you read that document, that it's about getting degrees? Because I know Michael did a great job just explaining about the whole process and partnership, but is that the first thing that comes to your mind?
So there's a general question to the group. When you read it, does that seem to be front and center, maybe too much of an emphasis?
My question, I just bring that up because it seems like these grants consistently are targeted towards education to feed the education industry. And if we're really taking care of our communities, we need to include multiple entry and exit points and be mindful that the end goal really should be high skill, high wage, high demand jobs for the population. And so I'm just trying to be mindful of that so that we're not just preaching college for all, no matter the cost, in knowing that they'll get in debt and they're not going to necessarily have a degree that makes them more employable. I think we do a disservice to our people when we don't consider that.
No, I hear that, Valerie, and great points. I don't want to negate the point. I'm more concerned about how it reads because we're competing to make sure that we have something that is diverse, sound, and comprehensive. So my question is, when you read it, if that's what it came off as, we need to do a little bit more to strengthening our beginning entry. So yeah.
All right, Dina.
I just wanted to lift up the fact that, if we're thinking about this still has to have this equity lens. And while we're talking about, yes, there's a slant towards making sure that folks are going into colleges and universities or whatever. One of the things about these populations is that they don't have high post-secondary attainment, period. And they don't have access to these high quality, high paying career jobs. And that, regardless whether they become an engineer or electrician, that still requires post-secondary education, in which we don't want them going to, especially the target populations, we don't want them to go into these for-profit colleges or offering certificates and things of that sort. So I definitely agree with the fact that we know that we need to emphasize post-secondary access and attainment. Not necessarily all of this is about 4-year degrees, because even in the pathway in education, they could be a preschool teacher, but they still need to get the California permit, not just be a preschool daycare worker. You know what I'm saying? Those are all post-secondary benchmarks that will enable them to have higher paying jobs and careers in those fields. So I just wanted to lift that up and just making sure that we do have that lens about the populations that we're targeting. The other thing, second point, was back to the descriptors of around the populations. Instead of using the disenfranchised, we may want to say underrepresented and underserved.
Yes.
Thank you. It's helpful.
Thank you for that. And very good point about, even though we do want, as Valerie is saying, we want multiple on-ramps and off-ramps to make sure that all the students, regardless of whether they go into higher education, have access to living wage employment and social and economic mobility. The core of this grant really is increasing higher education attainment. And as Dina was saying, that's critically important, because that has been a barrier to so many of our students to be able to, get those living wage jobs. So it's still all of the above, but clearly that is, you know, again, kind of one of many of the pieces we're working on in the Inland Empire, but this really is the education piece, and that is something that we definitely need to work on, is those transitions from high school to community college, from community college to four-year, from, you know, adult education into the community colleges through non-credit and other means, dual enrollment opportunities. I mean, all of this will help to move the region forward.
But does it read like that on the paper? Because I know I could talk about a lot of the stuff that I want to see happen in the region. My question is, I know we're going to work to that. That's why we're here. I think we are going to hold each other accountable to that. My question comes back to, does it read that way? Because if it doesn't read that way, then we need to make sure, because the people we're sending this to don't know us, don't work in this region, don't know the struggles. We know the struggles, we know the issues. Does it read like that on the paper? And that's just, I'm sorry I keep bringing it up, because if it doesn't read like that, then we're going to sound like everybody else. So I just want to make sure that our document that's going out reads with all those intersections.
Yeah, good point, Alex. And we're certainly, you know, we're still working on it. We can you know, look at the executive summary to make sure we can get, you know, make that more clear. But you know, the executive summary is just that. The application itself is quite extensive, and we go into, you know, those levels of detail in the application itself. And you know, and the application is, you know, this is we've focused a lot on conversations around building pathways in these Friday meetings, but there's other stuff as well, such as the data sharing agreements. You know, so there's other components that are going to strengthen this application, in addition to, you know, laying out the structure for these pathways. So anyway, you know, but point well taken, and we will definitely make sure that language is front and center, that it's in the executive summary, and that it drives really all parts of the application.
You know, the second paragraph is really the meat of the executive summary. And one particular phrase in it that jumps out at me, let me pull it up again, because I keep losing it while I'm looking at something else. Preparing students for promising careers. And if I were going to keep that as the second paragraph and bury that line in the second sentence or so of the second paragraph, I'd at least in the first paragraph put a little more emphasis on careers and students. I mean, there's a count there of, you know, how many people live in the county, how big is it, what's the, how many institutions are in it. I didn't see a single thing in there about this is our unemployment rate. These are the numbers of jobs that are open because we don't have students. These are the number of students in schools. That's the kind of thing I'd, you know, think about front and centering in terms of, you know, that single phrase. This is about preparing students for, you know, great careers, and that linkage between, you know, the job market and the education system. And that's the thing that doesn't quite really emerge in that, at least until a little later in the executive summary. And I mean, the executive summaries are a work of art. The real proposal is not the executive summary, it's the rest of the proposal. But as they say, no souls are saved after the first 5 minutes.
All right, thank you for that. From looking at the group with the head nods and some of the, you know, some of the comments in the chat, I think your point is well taken, Dean, and there's a lot of agreement, and we're gonna need to rework that so that is front and center in the first paragraph.
Right. That's why this is so, part of why this is so helpful, not only to share with you what we've been hearing, but also, does it read back that way?
Hillary.
Yeah, so this is just to sort of follow up on that last comment. I strictly from an editorial perspective, I feel like your strongest line is the opening line of your second paragraph. And I just feel like as a grant reader, if I'm going to be reading many of these applications, I want to be hit first thing with what are we going to do? And so I just feel like that's a really strong line. You know, we will increase the number and effectiveness of clearly defined education pathways. I feel like you're burying the lead. So just an editorial point.
Yes, thank you for that. I think that's the growing consensus here is we need to really highlight things in the second paragraph.
This is loving criticism.
Make it the first. Yeah. Oh yeah. This is incredibly valuable because, you know, the first paragraph, you know, at GIA, we write a lot of grants. And oftentimes, you know, kind of the philanthropic, you know, grant makers that we work with, they want, like what we put in the first paragraph, that's what they want to know about front and center. But this is different. And yeah, so I think we just defaulted to that because that is where we have had success in the past. But you know, all of you are right that what's in the second paragraph really is the core of what we're doing, and that needs to be highlighted more. All right, Michael Wayafe or Beth, do you have any thoughts, anything to add?
I just wanted to say I think this has been incredibly helpful, and I wanted to thank you all for the depth of sharing the depth of your experience. We've really tried to capture that and to insert all those conversations that we've been having for 3 months into this in terms of the richness of basically what you all and the people that you work with offer in this region. And we're certainly hoping that it comes through. But as I look at all the pictures of you on the screen, I keep thinking of all the things that you offer that we've tried to reflect in this grant, and I appreciate all your help along the way. It has been a tremendous group effort. And I think that's what distinguishes the region, and that will help us ensure the quality of what we do going forward. And I think comments that we've made today reflect that frank conversation and, okay, let's get together and how does it sound? And people are still sharing their best thinking.
Yeah, and to Beth's point, really this does not come out in the executive summary, but you know, all of the sort of collective support across the region, the MOUs we received back, the letters of support and engagement that we received back, it really shows a regional commitment to making this happen, and that is going to go a long ways toward making this successful.
I have nothing of substance to add. I was just going to say that couldn't say it better myself, as we've been engaging in this for a while, and folks' thoughts and input and putting it all together is a little bit of a challenge, but we're making it happen. And so the outcome, regardless of how it goes, I think we should be proud of everything that we've done so far.
All right. Anything else before we close the meeting?
I just want to say good job, great work. This I remember when we first started this process, it was definitely awkward for 2 weeks, which is normal. But what wasn't normal is how we got to working together and moving the ball further and faster than I've ever seen it. And it was well organized. And so I just want to say congratulations, great work, proud of y'all, and I'm glad to be part of the process.
Yeah, thanks, Alec. You said it well. We really appreciate everybody's involvement and support, and this is really just the beginning of this journey. We fully expect to be awarded this grant and to begin the work. Very, very shortly. Should be just a few weeks before we find out. And we're going to continue with these meetings because the Friday meetings will continue because we are fully expecting to receive the grant and to be able to move forward. So we need to really, to stop, not stop the momentum we've already created and continue working, continue moving forward with this work.
Now, I know people hate when I do this, and I apologize in advance. But are we going to party after this? Is there like a thing where we convene and meet up? Or this is just a Zoom thing? Like, I'm just trying to figure this out. Like,
yeah, are you offering to host a party?
Yeah, we should celebrate. This
Yeah.
should be a celebration. This is just that's my thing. I could be wrong.
Can I add that there is a gathering that is being planned for the different ants, and I would propose that since we've got a new one coming in, it needs to be included. It's the UCR in the middle of the summer. Those dates will be coming out shortly, but Michael, what you might want to do when we have those dates go out, when you talk with Ida, you might want to make sure that everyone that's on this list invited to that too, because it's going to be 2 days at UCR for free. We just want to make sure that everyone has that information, where we're going to be talking a lot about what we have been doing and where we're going from here and how best to collaborate. One of the reasons for that, UCR thought that the Zoom meetings, while they're great, once in a while you got to have FaceTime. So that's also, that can be part of your party, Alec. That's what you're looking for.
You better have good food. That's all I got to say. I don't, if your food is, not good, I don't know your party's going to suck, but I just want to say good food, good vibes, and let's just have fun. That's what I want.
I think there will be good minds anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. That would be a good time for us to gather. And yeah, absolutely. Zoom is fine for what it is, but in person is so important. I'm actually at a conference right now, first big in-person conference I've been to in a couple of years, focused on guided pathways, which is also integral to this project. And it's great to be around people and to, share that energy and it really does make a big difference to connect in person. So we'll definitely plan for that in the summer, and we'll have to look into reserving the barn for an evening shindig at one of those nights. I don't know if any of you have been to the newly refurbished barn at UCR, but I hear they did quite a remodel, and it's a beautiful facility to
Michael,
hang out and enjoy.
Just to add to that, those 2 dates are the 21st and 22nd of July, and it will involve the brand new facilities, including the new classroom in the round and all of the other abilities. And it also will include the ability to get to the barn. So yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
The 21st and 22nd of July.
Sounds good. We'll reserve those dates. All right, I think that's a pretty good place to end this. I think planning for our summer celebration. So again, we want to thank everybody for your commitment to this project, your ongoing participation and support, and we'll see you again next Friday, and we'll certainly provide updates as they become available. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Thanks.
Have a blessed
Very
one.
much.